All right, last task for the school year. So give it your best. So in this case, they are giving us the value that's on the unit circle. And on this slide, and we're going to ignore this one. On this slide, they're even telling us it's in quadrant 2. So they're giving us the value on the unit circle. So if we already have that, then what we must be trying to find is our angle. And in here they call it t. But we could easily just say it's cosine of theta equals negative root 2 over 2. There's only two places on the unit circle where x is negative. It's quadrant 2 and quadrant 3. And I know it's x because cosine is the same as x. So we're saying where on the unit circle is x negative root 2 over 2. And if you looked at your unit circle, you would see that cosine is right here at 3 pi over 4, or 135. The other way to think about it is it's root 2 over 2. It has a negative sign on it, but it must be from a 45, 45, 90 triangle. So I'm going to draw it here in quadrant 2, and I know that my reference angle is 45 degrees. And if this is 45, then I can now find what this angle is. That's what I'm trying to find. So it must be 180 degrees minus 45, which is 135 degrees. So I can say in this case that theta is 135 degrees. Or if they were asking for it in radians like they are here, I could convert it to radians at this point, or look at my unit circle and say that radians at that point is 3 pi over 4. All right. So one way of finding it is looking at your unit circle, saying, okay, cosine in quadrant 2 is negative root 2 over 2. Oh, it's at 135 degrees, or 3 pi over 4. Another is knowing that I must have a 45, 45, 90 triangle because of my value here. They're telling me it's in quadrant 2. I can use this reference angle now to find the missing angle. All right, let's try that in a different way. So this is the same problem. We're going to ignore this one again. It's the same problem, but now it's not giving me just quadrant 2. It's saying where on my unit circle, or where between 0 and 2 pi, do I have a value of negative root 2 over 2? And we talked before that x's are negative in quadrant 2 and quadrant 3. We also said this root 2 over 2, that leads me to believe that I have a 45, 45, 90 triangle. And so if my two values are negative, then I must have a 45 degree triangle here, where this is 45, and another 45 degree triangle down here. Notice I didn't do a great job of evening them up, but they're both supposed to be the same. And so one angle that I'm looking for is the angle up to this terminal side. And we already said that was 135 degrees, or 3 pi over 4. Well, this angle over here, this terminal side, is 180 plus 45 degrees. So this angle, the second angle to this point, is going to be 225 degrees. And if you converted that to radians, or you looked on your unit circle, you would see or 5 pi over 4. So what is my angle in these two cases? Theta could be at 3 pi over 4, but because it didn't me to a quadrant up here. It just said, what are all the possible angles that would make this true? Then the other possible angle is 5 pi over 4. All right, this is probably going to be a little confusing, and so the investigation goes a little more thoroughly in it. All right, we're still sticking with that root 2 over 2, but notice this is sine. So what value, x or y, is sine? You should get y. I do want you to pause and try this. Think about where on the unit circle is y negative. All right, hopefully you had some time to pause and try to work this one out on your own. Now you could just look at the unit circle and find out where are the parts on the unit circle where my y value is a negative root 2 over 2. But we know that y is negative below the x-axis, so quadrants 3 and 4 are where I'm going to have a value. Again, it's root 2 over 2. It's not 1/2 or root 3 over 2, so it has to be a 45, 45, 90 triangle. So I know I'm going to have one here where this reference angle here is 45 degrees. And we're going to have another one right here. And if I draw my triangle in, we know this angle is 45 degrees. So we can use that to find the two angles that give us the value. And we know here we have an x and a negative root 2 over 2. And here, and this is going to be a negative x. And here is a positive x and a negative root 2 over 2. So they've given us the value, so we must be finding the angle. So to get to this first angle here, it's 180 degrees here plus 445. So one possibility for t, or we could call it theta, is 225 degrees. Or we know that that is 5 pi over 4. The other one is, if this is 360 degrees here, then this angle down here must be 360 minus 45. So if we take 360 minus 45, we get 315 degrees. So our other possibility is 315 degrees. And in radians, that happens to be 7 pi over 4. Now again, you could just look at your unit circle and say, okay, where are my sine values? So y values, a negative root 2 over 2. Well, up here they're positive. And down here you can see that they're both negative at 5 pi over 4 and 7 pi over 4.